We, collectively, the members of the PLSA, invest over £1 trillion worth of cash, members' cash, into businesses and assets in the UK economy and economies overseas. And that's a huge sum of money. That's equivalent to 50% of GDP. So we are people of influence.
Opening the 2018 Investment Conference, the PLSA's chair, Richard Butcher, stressed the role that the pensions industry plays in the UK economy and why this year's event aimed to highlight just how instrumental it can be in driving the economic machine.
It's about helping pension funds to maximise the returns that they can get, so that they're helping DB sponsors do the heavy lifting on the funding obligations that they have, so they can help DC members do the heavy lifting on getting good retirement outcomes. So driving the economic machine, it's all about improving the quality of returns, improving the long-term returns, getting better quality pensions.
Having become Deputy Prime Minister whilst the UK was still in the throes of the 2008 global financial crisis, Nick Clegg hoped lessons would be learned from history.
Memories are short. People are already starting to forget the imbalances, the exposures, the liabilities that can brew in a system if unchecked. There is an odd habit we have as human beings to forget the lessons of the last crisis, assume it can never happen again, even as we preside in ignorance over the roots of the next crisis.
Also advocating the past as a guide, albeit an imperfect one, historian Dan Snow.
Your day job is trying to work out what's going to happen in the future. It's very hard to know what's going to happen in the future because it hasn't happened yet. Whereas what has happened is the past. One thing we can argue about, of course, disagree about, but we can find a place for shared facts and shared understandings is the past.
As the pensions industry tries to navigate tricky geopolitical waters, the so-called history guy offered an overview of Britain's relationship with Europe and the impact Brexit may have.
If people here take away one thing, it's that what happens in Europe affects us here on this island, on these islands, whether we like it or not. Plague, Protestantism, physics, pensions have all come from Europe to here, and there's been nothing we can do about that. And so we have a choice of trying to gain influence in Europe and try and shape those innovations they happen there, or of pulling up the drawbridge and hoping somehow that we can deal with them when they arrive.
European uncertainty aside, Nick Clegg did remain positive about how the pensions industry could be a force for good.
If you are managing other people's money, you have to make a return. So, I don't think anyone should apologise for that. But if they're able to make a return, whilst also investing money in things that desperately need to be invested in, affordable housing, better ways of delivering social care, the provision of better vocational education, I mean the kind of things that we know are the big, profound problems in society, much of which, by the way, should be solved by government. But of course, these huge funds can also play a role in trying to heal some of those issues as well, if they can make a return. I mean, they're not charities, right, and they shouldn't pretend they are. But if there can be a way of having a sort of virtuous circle between both profit, good returns, and good long-term returns for society, that would, of course, be the ideal scenario.
A virtuous circle, though, that must still generate the best returns.
We have a fund that overweights renewables and underweights heavy carbon emitters. So that's really important because those heavy carbon emitters are not going to do as well in the long term if we transition to a low carbon economy.
So it's actually about managing risk, not just impact investing.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have been dealing with a sort of conveyor belt of huge political events, and that fact alone is not what we've been used to in this country. And of course that has generated a sense of turbulence and what some people would see as a sense of chaos.
Whilst living in the unpredictable political times described by BBC political editor Laura Koonsberg, transparency campaigner Gina Miller believes it's more important than ever to bolster public trust in an industry responsible for so many people's future prosperity.
When you see something that's wrong, you have to speak up and not just put yourself first. In your conflicts of interest, you need to put your conflicts in your bottom drawer and get on with doing what's right, because in the long term, it benefits everyone. So don't be frightened to go against the establishment. Don't be frightened to ask questions and almost be a wrecking ball for the establishment, because what you evolve out of that is very, very positive and actually creates more solutions and problems.
And that could create more engagement with an industry which some believe could also better harness technology to draw in new savers.
you're starting perhaps at, you know, the conversation at a young age, and you're you know, walking through people's lives with them, and you can really use all of the extraordinary resources around big data to help, you know, understand so much better the kind of customers that you're talking to, and what it is that they care about and what drives them, in ways that, you know, are going to enable so much better of a conversation.
M&G's Anne Richards, meanwhile, seized the opportunity to issue a reminder of the stark inequality that still exists in the system too.
In financial terms, there is still a gender divide. We see that women are more likely to retire with smaller pensions. They're more likely to experience poverty in old age. So there's still a gender element to things, even like pensions, and trying to work out what we need to do structurally all the way through a woman's career to make sure that we get that imbalance out at the end of the day is really important. So I think for our industry, talking about International Women's Day today is partly about addressing that gap in retirement.
Bringing together 1,000 pensions professionals, this conference set out to inform and inspire. And those tackling the myriad of challenges facing the investment world could leave knowing that they had contributed to the key conversations that will count in the year to come.